here, the excitement of my life began anew. I was visiting a friend of mine, Alan Bly, who started out in the same cantorial choir of Brownstones that I did in Winnipeg. He was a wonderful singer. He ended up being executive producer of the Smothers Brothers. And then he discovered Sonny and Cher. That was his program. He discovered them, and he was executive producer of that show. He did very well. One of the wonderful things about him was that even though his voice was so good that as a young man he replaced Robert Goulet on Broadway in Camelot, he never, with all these successes, and then he produced Andy Williams' show and Bobby Vinton's show, he stayed the same wonderful, sweet guy he is, and he still lives now. He's retired in Palm Springs. Why am I telling you this? Because Alan Bly and my friend, the associate rabbi of our shul, Valley Beth Shalom, that I gave a name, Our Lady of Perpetual Simcha. I don't use that name anymore because I got as many laughs as I could from that line the first 20 years I used it. So Fred Margulies, and as I said, Alan Bly, they told me about this shul, and they said, "What are you doing now? You just got married." I said, "Yes. And I'm going to have to be a cantor again." They said, "They're looking for a cantor at this shul." Each of them told it to me separately. They belonged to, obviously he worked at the shul, and Alan belonged to the shul. And they said, "It's the most exciting shul you've ever seen." I said, "Oh, I've heard that before." And I went with Alan that Saturday morning to Valley Beth Shalom. I went there Friday night too. And Friday night, the room was packed, and everybody, lechuna ranana, lechuna, people clapping. I said, "Oh my God, if I'm going to be the cantor here, I'm going to stop that clapping." What can I tell you? And then Rabbi Shulai spoke, and he, "Jew, the destiny of your..." Such drama. This guy was terrific. I never heard of him. I didn't know him, And I started to think. I heard the cantor, Sam Ford, is wonderful, and a big choir, and the people, they got up, they were clapping. It was at that point, I say it openly and from a full heart, it was the most exciting shul I had ever attended. It was like a Karlbach concert with the Rabbi of Nemirov speaking, and it was just magnificent. So I auditioned for the shul. I'm beginning my 43rd year, as a kibbutz. I've been suffering 42 years, but it's not true. I was very lucky and privileged to spend most of my adult life professionally in these walls. And I had the most wonderful time, thank God. So what happens, I'm going to audition for the shul. And I knew that shul I spoke, he had a rather lengthy speaking style, but it was so good. It was so good, right? So Margulies told me that shul I spoke long, and Alan Bly said he spoke long. He was the cantor here once, overflow service. But that's that, right? So I got a call from Shulais that he wanted to speak to me. Now, I never told this story other than once or twice to close friends and my wife, but it's so many years now since it happened, and a few years after Shulais' passing, that I know he would forgive me if I told it. And there was nothing bad that happened, but I'll tell it to you word for word, no editorial comment. You decide on your own. You decide on your own. He called me, said, Cantor. Began with the word Cantor. I think, it's going to be an interesting. "Are you busy tomorrow?" I said, "No." "Can we meet?" I said, "Of course." "What time?" And we made a time, and I come to see him. And he sits with me, and I knew he was from the Bronx, so I knew he spoke Yiddish, but I didn't go to Yiddish. I wanted to come over as an American Jew looking for a very wonderful pulpit in California. I tried not to use my hands too much, like that. So what happens is he says, and we spoke for about 5-10 minutes. He says, you probably heard, and I'm going to try to remember it as best I can. You probably heard that I don't make short sermons. I said, "Yes, I heard that." He said, "Who did you hear it from?" And I would tell him the truth. Fred Margulies and Alan Bly. Well, they know. They've been with me in shul. So I like that he didn't get upset or anything. He says, sing for me Friday night. What's your favorite? I said, Hashkivenu. He said, sing Hashkivenu. So I did Jacob Kosevitsky's Hashkivenu. And it's a beautiful Hashkivenu. It starts in a sweet way. I don't have to illustrate again. And in the middle, and it just goes to town. And then it goes to the Chatim al Frosolenu, Hapore Sukkot Shalom Aleinu V'Kol Yisrael V'Al Yerushalayim. And I did it. And he looks at his watch. And he says, how long do you think that took? I said about 7 minutes. He said 8.5 minutes. What if I told you, Cantor Fox, that we really didn't have more than 2 minutes for the Hashkivenu? Could you do it in 2 minutes? This is my biggest forte. I don't have a big voice like Caruso, but I learned Nusach as a kid. So I said, no problem. And I tried to interpret the words, which is what I try to do whenever I down. I try the words to come to life, and I want people to sing with me as much as I can. By the way, you know I got the job done. I clap more than anybody now. So I did, Shalom. I started quiet, etc. And then, I gave a little juice, and then I get to the Chatima, and I look at my second hand here. I've got 30 seconds. I go Uferos, approximately. Uferos, Aleinu, Sukkot Shlomecha. Take 20 seconds. Baruch atah Hashem, hapoilis v'shalom aleinu, aleinu, v'alekol amo Yisrael. 6 seconds. V'yal Yerushalayim. He looks at me and says, that was unbelievable. He says, that was exactly 2 minutes. You are a terrific Cantor. And that's how I got the job at PBS. The audition on that was a formality.